and sisters down in Cole County have some of the same issues we have in Cook County. And just imagine going 16 years without your commercial and industrial properties being assessed. 16 years. And the difference between Cole County is that it's rural, farm. And up here, we have skyscrapers and businesses and industry. But the number one reason why folks are leaving our state is property taxes. Crime is number 2, jobs are number 3. And so what we're seeing, and I do have a plan called the 2022 plan, where we talk about the fact that we got 7,000 units of government in this state. More units of government than any state in the United States of America. Number 2, we got 856 school districts, which need to be brought down to 102 unified K-12. Now, in my research, I was listening to Professor Ann Lucen, who is a professor at John Marshall Law School. As I was listening to her interview, she said we had 11,000 school districts. Well, I said, what? So I did my research. Come to find out, in 1940, we had 12,000 school districts. 12,000. From 12,000, it came down to 856. But the problem with the 856, we're wasting $1 billion a year on administrative costs. Then, about 3 weeks ago, we done found out we got 9,000 administrators at $100,000 each and a 1.4 million pension plan. And when you talk about the tax divide, we lost $2.5 billion that was taken away from our community because our property was overvalued, overassessed, and overtaxed. And then comes CMAP, Metropolitan Planning Commission. They put out a story that because of racism, segregation, we lost $4 billion. And part of that $4 billion could have went to support our schools. So when our state rep talk about the law that give her and her fellow colleagues the teeth to deal with these issues, it's upon us as citizens, public officials, to work together to bring an end to the madness. Now, we must get the schools off the property tax system. We must have one statewide budget for education like they did in California and like they did in Hawaii. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Now we'll have Professor Lysandra Graves, the apartment lady.
Hello, everyone. I am known as the apartment lady because I'm the founder of Apartment Housing Rental Foundation. Apartment Housing Rental Foundation clients, we have a second chance rental and eviction prevention program. So I'm pretty much just going to say some numbers, and it's going to shock you. 2.3 million people have been taken to eviction court in 2016. 900,000 people were evicted in 2016. So these numbers mean this. When you get taken to an eviction court, you're pretty much a high-risk renter. You're considered a high-risk renter. So even if they don't get the eviction, your records, public records, they're sold to three different companies, and those companies sell your public records to people that do eviction checks, landlords, managers, things of that nature. And so when they buy your public record, they're looking for evictions, whether you've been taken to court or not. What does this have to do with property taxes? When your rent, if the landlord who owns the house or the building, property taxes is high, then that determines your rent. That determines market rent. So if you're gonna hear a testimony of someone who has a house that's $230,000, but it's taxed, the rate, they pay $14,000 a year for taxes. So I broke that number down. I said, wow, if this is a 3-bedroom house, and I'm just saying 3-bedroom just to give you a picture. If this is a 3-bedroom house and their tax bill is $14,000 a year, then that means that's $1,167 a month. So for a 3-bedroom house like that, they can only afford to rent that house at $1,800 or more. Because what? They have their insurance they have to maintain because they can't rent it to you without insurance. They have their taxes, $1,167. So we're going to say that's $1,300 right there. And then they have to be able to maintain the house because if something happens, so they need about $400 or $500 just for maintenance and water bills because renters don't pay water bills. And the water bills are going up with the taxes. So that raises market rent. What we call the disenfranchised, and the renters are no longer disenfranchised because the 2008 housing market pretty much made the rental market the highest market. That's higher than homeowners at this point. But the renters, that rental industry, we get that price. We get our market rent being raised. So now a 3-bedroom house is $1,800 for rent. If you don't have Section 8, you can't afford it on minimum wage. Even if you have a 2-parent home, you can't afford $1,800 for rent. And not only can you not afford $1,800 for rent, you will never be able to buy because $1,800, and even in a 2-family home, and you're making minimum wage, you're bringing in $4,000 after taxes, the income taxes, and so forth. Okay, this is a problem. This is a problem, and every time they raise the taxes, more people get evicted. You know why? Because they can't. Because they're gonna get their rent hiked up as soon as their lease is over. Because the landlord is not going to pay for you to stay there. They're not gonna absorb the high property taxes. This is a problem. So when I look around this room and I'm asking, okay, over in the suburbs, we had about 100 people here. Why don't we have so many people here on the west side of Chicago? And I was told, well, they're renters. Renters don't think property taxes have anything to do with you. But yes, they do. If you want your rent to go down, then you better be in these forums or legislative hearings or town hall meetings. This is a legislative hearing. But you better be at every meeting, every hearing if you want your rent to go down. Because Illinois has came up with a term called double up living. That's trying to make it a norm for people to live with each other. That's what double up living went, 2-family households. Now I know that the seniors and the people that is living in their houses, owner-occupied houses, they're facing it too. They're having a hard time with these property taxes, but I can only speak for my renters, okay? Yeah. Oh, that's a minute. I was gonna get into this, you guys. Because I'm very passionate about this. If you only knew But the only way we can make a change is if you guys come out. Martin Luther King marched. Harold Washington brought the people out. The time is now. The time is now for your voices to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we have Clifton Graham.
Hello, neighbors. My name is Clifton Graham. I'm from Country Club Hills area, and I said, well, I'm doing all this traveling to discussing about these property taxes, so everywhere I'm going, I'm trying to go. I said, well, how can I relate to all the community out here? Well, I worked for about 6-7 years at Hostess Plant over in Schiller Park, and so that's my relationship. And I remember a young man, because I was a manager, and he bought a home in Austin community. And he was very proud, and he was a minister, matter of fact, he was a young minister. And he was very proud of him purchasing that home, no matter how the plate was being portrayed in the cafeteria and everywhere else. And I always respected him because he's a homeowner. And I had been a homeowner for quite a while. And now that I'm sitting here, and I saw his community then, and now I see my community in the same predicament, on the verge of losing my home, losing my neighbors, losing my businesses in the community, losing my friends. And my testimony is going to change every day, because the effect is still happening right now. Even though we got the Cook County Assessor out of office, the systematic system to eliminate us, to gentrify our community and transfer it into whatever wealth they want it to be, is still in the program. When we talk about the tax divide, or where the black community is being overtaxed and the north side is being undertaxed, it's still happening right now. And so even though the transition has changed, and they're over there, now they're saying, okay, we elected someone to come into our community and say they're gonna do something for us. And you realize it's just the same story. And we have to do for ourselves, and that's why I'm here telling to you and trying to relate to you that we need to appeal our taxes, like I've been appealing my taxes for almost 20 years. But I've still seen my taxes go from $7,000 to $14,000. I have seen the money shift from where they lower mine and raise my neighbors. I have ran for office. I have been on the board of Homeowners Association. I have done possibly everything I can. Today, this weekend is my 30th anniversary of with my wife. And I'm here because I know that I'm trying to save my home for my kids. You know, that's my goal. If I can get these taxes down through this board, which we can, by working every day and stifling this extreme divestment, and I would say so personal that I can't even describe how hardening it is for 20 years to purchase a home for, like she told you all, for $235,000. And today, 20 years later, it's probably worth less. But I paid more taxes than I paid toward my home. And then to find out, and the system is set up for me to lose. You know, they go to the north side just recently, and you said that's the problem. So I read today, and it really hit home, and I'll be real quick. They went over there to Nutria area where Winnetka and all the rich areas, and they finally put the tax on them that they deserve. But they doubled their taxes, so it's a 53% assessed value increase. Some of them got a 95% tax increase. And I said, now the tax shift is coming. But then I see the assessor comes and he gives them a flood break. Now, these people who have $4 million, $3 million homes are now getting their value assessed $1 million less because they decide to live off the lake and didn't expect water to be in their basement. And so this is a continued process of taking care of the rich and using us, because I'm continuing to pay the same amount, that $14,000. I ask you to tell your neighbors, tell your friends, to listen, to come to these hearings all over the state, wherever we may be at, and get ready to, if you don't appeal, you won't get anything. And even though I appeal and I don't get anything, you won't be in the game to get anything. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. You know, I hate to have to, which I have done, move my real estate businesses to Indiana, because I could pay $2,000 for a 3-flat, where I go live in the south suburbs and I gotta pay $15,000. I ain't stupid, you know what I'm saying? Okay, but I believe, you know, I love my community, and I know the resources that's in our community can grow tremendously if we get a fair shake. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Linda Fulton.
Thanks. Good evening, family. And I'm kind of going to echo off of all of my colleagues that sat up there, and thank you to Mary Flowers for this task force. I first want to sentiment what Sister said here, because I'm a renter, but I have buyers in my family, so we all got to be conscious of that. Number one, what I need to share with you is get on that phone call and blow it off the hook. That's right. That means aldermen, state rep, and whoever else, find out who the housing committee folks and whoever else, what's going on, what has happened in my community, how do I get in touch with you. I don't want to wait and go to Springfield with the bus. I say let's go now to LaJohn's office, Mary's office, and anybody else's office we got to go to. Because as she said, I live in a high-rise where the rent for the 1-bedroom in 2 years ago was $808. Family today is $1,031. I was telling Anthony, I say, are they losing their mind? Yes, we're paying school taxes, whether we know it or not. And you have no children in the public school. I don't mind paying the tax, but don't overtax me, or don't carry the rent up 1 year when Social Security didn't give anything back to the seniors. They still went up on the rent. So the time is now, family, like she said, to do what we need to do to be involved. You got to call somebody and tell somebody, or you got to go get Sister and Big Mama, and let's go to Mary's office, or let's go to LaShawn's office. Springfield ain't the only place we can go. And you can call, and those of you who love to write, I take 2 paragraphs. If you can't tear it, I'll tear it and read it for you. Make sure you got your name and phone number on it, and that's it for Glenda. But it's all about us. It's not about one, it's about all.
Thank you. Now we have Lakia Colquitt.
Okay, yes, close enough. Okay, so the last time they had me at the legislative hearing, I didn't write down what I was going to say, and I took a left turn. And I started talking about Caucasians in America. So today, I've written down something that will take about 30 seconds to discuss. I was one of the fortunate individuals, and I was able to purchase my first home at the age of 20. By the age of 27, I was losing that house. They had doubled my taxes in a poverty-stricken area. So the house value wasn't going up, it was increasingly going down, but my taxes doubled. I was one of the people who went into foreclosure, but I was fortunate enough to sell my house before they took it, right? And so I'm just here to say, you know, finally, we have an opportunity in America to become educated. We have the opportunity in America to become homeowners. And we've worked really hard to get these houses and to get this education and to invest our monies in these areas. And so for them to come once again to take back what we worked for and to give tax deductions to a place like New Trier, where their kids are in private school and they're on yachts because they live next to a lake. It's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to fight. And it's time for us to change the course of history, because if we continue in the way in which we're going, we're gonna be back where we were.
Thank you so much. We have Mr. Obi Ward.
Obi Wordlaw. Oh, okay, and the Obi stands for King, in case you wanted to know who it comes from. I am very impressed with Mary Flower, with Representative Flower. And I told her so at one of her meetings. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which? Oh, yeah. Over there, okay.
King.
Okay. Okay. I am very impressed with Representative Flowers. I took, in her office, I think I took about 15 pictures because she had a lot of representation of black people.
That's right.
I am also trying to get Representative Ford to run for mayor, and I told him I would support him all the time. She mentioned something about double living. I am a West Sider, for real. To give you an example why I say that. What happened, before they had the expressway, I lived on Congress and Halsted. Before they had the University of Illinois, I lived on Salina and Roosevelt. I've always watched I guess it's okay to say that, I watched the other races, maybe I'll say it without identifying any particular race. I watched them move, then we follow them, they redline us, then we follow them to the next move. LaShawn Ford helped me with my business. I had a business on the west side for 30 years. Actually, longer than that. 74, I was on Central Park and Ogden with a liquor store. I had a medical equipment and supply company on Roosevelt and Holman. The trees that you saw on Roosevelt, that you see on Roosevelt and Holman, Roosevelt, and also the benches that were there was due to the fact that I was an activist, which is why they're asking you all to become activists. Because in order to change things, you gotta become involved.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in an apartment where we shared 2 families in one house. What you're talking about, they're trying to take us back to now. So I'm a recipient of that. I remember when they wouldn't sell black people houses. So I'm probably the oldest one in the room. And to tell you how old I am, I'm 83 years old. So I have some experiences with redlining on Roosevelt and Homer where I had my business, and I had the tallest building on Roosevelt and Homer other than downtown. And the value, the banks would not loan me any money. But I was part of an organization called Midwest Community Council. Those of us who remember that. And I helped close down construction sites. And I also had helped get Roosevelt Road paved because of my relationship with them. And we also had a fight with Jesse Jackson. So my slogan is follow the money from A to Z. So I'm gonna just throw 2 quick points out there. The Dan Ryan, some of the entrances and exits were closed so that they would not, so people who were coming from out of the city would shoot straight downtown, either to the ballpark or to other people out of our neighborhood. So the businesses in our neighborhood closed because the resources left. We gotta pay attention. He gave you some numbers in terms of all those different plans. We got to pay attention to what's going on, and because of Representative Flowers and LaShawn Ford, they're definitely in tune with what's happening. So you and I got to make sure that, like this young lady was saying, that we become advocate and stay involved. So I got a long history, so I'm not gonna give it to you, but just recognize following the money from A to Z is why we've lost all the things that we've lost in this neighborhood. Lastly, I had one politician tell me I helped make a millionaire on Ogden and, what is that? Ogden, before you get to Pulaski. You all know those big complexes over there. When I got through talking about her, she stopped talking to me. Because that same organization, since I sold medical equipment and supplies, would not buy my products so that I could hire my people. And I'm saying that if we, as this young lady mentioned economics, if black people are not able to hire at least 30 employees and do at least $5 million a year, then you and I have got a lot of work to do in terms of bringing back our houses in our community, because if you ain't making no money, you can't take care of these houses no way.
Thank you. So now we're gonna go into new business. Yeah, we're gonna go back. She has to leave though, I'm sorry. You needed to come, you have to go to another event? Okay, so you wanna test either the testimonies, then we're gonna go back to the table. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Right, there's public comments.
Hi everyone, God bless you all. My name is Justina Winfrey. I'm from the west side of Chicago, a proud resident of the 28th Ward. My family has been in the ward for over 60 years, legacy residents. Just to address Professor LaShonda Graves, off the top of my head, we haven't had an active housing committee in the state legislature since about 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong. In about 2012, it was decommissioned. Okay.
So, but it was prior to 2012.
Yes. So as of 2012, if we Google State of Illinois Housing Committee, we'll see that it was decommissioned in 2012. In 2013, off the top of my head, I believe they created the Economic Development and Housing Committee, and that was decommissioned in 2015. As of right now, I'm not aware that we actually have an active housing committee per se in the state legislature. And this is something that Rep. Ford, who is my honorable state rep in the 8th legislative district, I brought this to his attention, and we are basically at the point where we need the community to ask our state legislators, who are thankfully here right now, why don't we have a housing committee in this great state of Illinois?
I'm glad you asked that question, because one of our members was over the housing committee. But it wasn't the housing, it was the problems with the housing that we had. And so as a result, you could build it, but you couldn't keep it.
Yes.
And so therefore, that's the reason why they've been dismantled and decommissioned. So right now, what we need to do is to fix the long-term problem as well as the short-term. The short-term is that there's discrimination going on. The short-term is that there's violations of the law. Now, once we get rid of the problems that's impacting because of the inequities that our communities have endeavored, the housing should be there. And when I say it should be there, what I mean by that, we are entitled, the housing in our community and the funding, those are things that we are entitled to. But I don't want to deal with housing now because I know it'll be gone. I won't be able to leave my granddaughter anything. You won't be able to leave your child anything.